painters, welcome back. Today we are doing a lovely fall waterfall scene. My paint colors today that I'm working with are white, black, brown, red, yellow, blue, and green. I also have some mixing plates to mix up all my colors, a can of water, some paper towels, and I am working with a couple different brushes today. My first brush that I have is a flat brush that's sort of round at the edge called a filbert brush. My second brush is also flat, but it's more squared at the edge. And my third brush is small, round, pointy for all my fine details, sort of like a pencil. Now, first thing we need to do is mix up our background colors or paint in our background. So we're going to be mixing up a darker brown color and etching out basically where our land is going to be. We are going to be grabbing that flat brush that's sort of round at the edge, grabbing our mixing plate, and we're going to grab a nice big scoop or two of brown and a very small touch of black. And there we go. We're just going to mix up this super easy darker brown, something nice and chocolatey. Then what we're going to be doing is etching out the top edge of our hill where our waterfall is going to sit. About a fourth or a third on the way down on the left side, and just a little bit higher than that over on the right. You can see I dipped that hill line in the center down a little bit. That's where my waterfall is going to sit. Then down near the bottom on the right side, we're going to be starting our lake about a third of the way down, or 2/3 of the way down our canvas, go across and then curve underneath just to create a lake area. From there, I'm going to paint everything in this section with the brown. Just make sure you avoid that lake and the sky. Now, while this paint is still wet, we're going to be adding some texture to the kind of mountain hill area. We are going to be getting our brush. You can clean it off if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm just going to grab a little bit of white paint on my brush and throw a couple little random wiggles using just the side edge of my brush. You could see some of these are more blended in, some of them are more vibrantly white, and that's what you want. You don't want them all to be the same. Now we're going to do the same thing, but with black. And you want it to blend in with the brown and some of the white, so you get some darker brown areas and even some gray areas. Next, we're going to be switching to our small pointy brush to paint in the background trees in our sky. So we're going to be taking that small pointy brush and adding some white paint to our darker brown that we had mixed up in the beginning. So you have this very pale, sort of muted brown color. Then from there, we're going to be drawing lots of different trunks at the top of our hill. You want these to have a little bit of wave, a little bit of curve. You don't want them to all be super straight. Some can be shorter, some can be taller, some can be thicker, and some can be thinner. But add as many as you want, and then you can add some branches by turning those lines into the letter Y a couple of times. Then we want to add some leaves to these trees, make them feel a little bit fuller. We're simply going to dab our brush a whole bunch of times in a bunch of different clusters. This is going to represent the leaves. Obviously you want most of the leaves to be focused where your branches are, but you can also put those dots near the bottom of the trees because that could resemble bushes or grass that's in our background. This part right here is very abstract. It does not need to be perfectly, what's the word I'm looking for? Perfectly perfect. We're looking for something really obscure, really abstract, because this is way in the background. So things and images start to get a little distorted, if you could say. Next, we are going to be filling in our lake, or this little river pond area. We're going to be taking our Flat brush that's round at the edge, make sure it's clean, grab a scoop of white, scoop of blue, and mix that up, and then we're going to be filling in that lake with this color. Now we're going to be worrying about all the foliage that is on the ground. So, clean flat brush, we're going to be mixing up a very bright orange. I'm going to be taking a tiny bit of white, big scoop of yellow, and about a half a scoop of red, and mix those together. Then we're going to be adding clusters of bushes into our ground simply just by tapping my brush in a small clustered area. You can see some areas are a little bit floofier, the edges might be a little bit thinner, they almost resemble clouds in a way. But I'm going to add a few areas of this. It's mainly going to be focused down along this bottom edge. Then we're going to be adding some greens. So clean brush, I'm going to be getting a big scoop of green, a decent sized scoop of yellow, and a tiny bit of black. We want to create this sort of dark foresty green. I'm also going to add the smallest amount of white to it just to make sure that color is a little bit more opaque. Now we're going to be adding clusters just like we did with the orange in some of the more vacant spots in our ground. Now we're going to be switching to our small pointy brush and mixing up a lime green for our ground. I'm going to grab a scoop of white, a scoop of yellow, and a small touch of green. This is to add some highlights and of course just some more different textures into our foliage. So once we have our color mixed up, we're going to be doing a dotting texture, sort of like we did with the leaves in our trees. And we're going to be just layering this over top of some of the brown areas, some of the darker green areas, maybe even some of the orange areas too. Now to make some of this look more grassy and less mossy, what you can do is take your brush, start in the cluster, and sort of flick your brush upwards to create little blades of grass. Next, with a clean pointy brush, we are going to be creating a lighter orange. So whatever orange you already have that we used for our ground, we're just going to take a little bit of white, add it right into there, maybe even a little bit more yellow just so it's a little bit more of a vibrant orange. And we're going to be adding some more clusters into our ground, just adding all these different shades of color, because when you think of fall, you think of so many colors in the sky, on the ground, right? And in those clusters of lighter orange, I'm going to be going back into a little bit of my darker orange and adding some dots on top, just so that we have a couple different colors in those clusters. Now, we're going to be adding some sort of wind over top of the trees in our background with my flat brush that's squared at the edge. Take a little bit of white, take most of it off of my brush, and just slowly dry brush some of this white over the trees in the background. It gives this beautiful haze or fog into our sky. Next, we're going to be adding some ripples and movement in our water. Going back to our flat brush that's round at the edge, I'm going to be grabbing a little bit of white paint on my brush, and we're just going to be doing small little wiggled lines throughout the water, keeping them nice and horizontal. This is going to give the water some movement. You can feel free to even use your finger to blur out some edges so it looks a little bit more organic. Next, we're going to focus on the big tree that's sitting over to the right. Going to grab that same brush, make sure it's nice and clean, and beginning into our lighter orange. We're going to be randomly throwing in a whole bunch of this orange on the right side, starting sort of in the middle of our water and working our way up close to the top of our canvas. These clusters you can see are nice and thick, we want this tree to be very full. Then I'm going to be switching to my small pointy brush, getting into my darker orange. I need to mix up some more since I kind of ran out just a little bit. And I'm going to be taking the brush and doing random little dots throughout all of that orange area to break up the color and add some more dimension. Now before we do anything else, we do need to let our painting dry. Give yourself about 10 to 15 minutes and then we'll come back. Once your painting is dry, we're going to continue into our lovely, lovely painting here. So we're going to be taking our squared flat brush and we are going to be getting into a little bit of white paint and focusing on our waterfall. So right in that dip at the top of your hill area, that's where your waterfall is going to be. You're going to just start at the top and let your brush run out of paint as it goes into the water. You can see I sort of curve it a little bit at the top to make it seem like it's more of a 3D effect. And then it's just going to cascade down. You can feel free to add some thicker, more opaque lines using the blade or just the tip edge of your brush. This will just help to break up some of the same consistency throughout our waterfall. Have some different things going on. I'm going to even add some more little dabs of white down at the bottom because you know when a waterfall hits the water, there's going to be chaos. So add that chaos right down at the bottom. Now we're going to be focusing on the big tree over to the right. We're going to be taking our small round pointy brush and we're going to be getting some black paint. Now we're going to start at the top of our tree, which goes all the way across the top edge of our canvas. So down the middle of all those orange leaves that we made before, starting at the tippy top of our painting and then working our way down. You want the bottom of your tree to be a lot thicker than the top of your tree, right? As any trunk sort of is. And we're also going to be adding another chunk that is going to be kind of crossing over. So sort of towards the top of the orange leaf area, over to the right of the trunk we just made. We're going to start a line, cross over to the left, and finish to the left of the tree that we made in the beginning. I do have a couple more little trunks that I'm going to add to the right of my center tree. And then I'm going to start to think about branches. So whenever we think about branches, remember how we talked about them for our background. Think of them as a letter Y, right? No 90-degree angles. You just want that branch to sort of curve onto the trunk of your tree. I'm also going to be adding a couple of branches or sticks that kind of poke into different parts of our painting. So down here along this bottom edge, I'm also going to have some that sort of come out from the left edge of my canvas. Then we're going to be adding some green to those sticks. So grabbing my small pointy brush, and we are going to be adding into our lime green another big scoop of our green that we have on our palette. So something a little bit darker, maybe even add a little bit more yellow so it's more of a grassy green. Now for these little branches that we have, we're going to be doing tiny little dots that sort of sit just along the outside edge of them. These are more placed as opposed to how we did the tree on the right side. Then I'm going to get a clean pointy brush and we are going to be mixing up a new color, grabbing a scoop of white, Grabbing a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red. Mix, mix, mix. We have this sort of pale, kind of peachy color, verging on orange. And we're going to be adding some dots of this over top of some of the branches and trunks of our trees on that right side. To a portion of that light kind of orangey color, we're going to be adding a little bit more yellow and a nice big scoop of red, make something a lot deeper. And we're going to be adding some more dots of that into our tree as well. Going back into that lighter orange, we're going to be adding some dots of this color to the branches that were sort of on the bottom edge of our canvas, as well as some that are on that left edge. Now that is the last and final step to creating this beautiful fall waterfall scene. Of course, make sure you sign your painting when you're done, and we'd love to see what you've painted at home. You can feel free to post it on social media and tag us at muse_paintbar so we can check them out. Of course, if you want to see more from our channel, more videos, more tutorials, make sure you like and subscribe. And with that, don't forget to always paint outside the lines.